We want to welcome everybody. Eric, you're joining in from Colorado. Hi, Eric. How are you doing?
Wonderful. Thanks for having me, Philip. Thank you, sir. Happy having a winter wonderland today. We're getting blasted with a big snowstorm, and the kids are home from school, and it's another beautiful day in February. It's good. Happy to be
Oh,
here. Thanks
wow.
for having me.
Why won't you introduce yourself a little bit? What are you doing actually at your work, Wonderworks, and at the Hemp Building Association, just so everybody can get to know you a little bit.
Yeah. So it's just well, it's saying my internet is unstable, so we'll see how this goes. But my name is Eric McKee, and I'm the owner operator of the Wonder Workshop. We are a hemp-based product development company here in Denver, Colorado. And my background for the last 25 years has been in the snowboard and outdoor industry. Everything from working retail to developing products and in the ski and snowboard industry. Started working in industrial hemp about 5 years ago, and since then, we've been assisting the industry essentially in building out some infrastructure. My goal has been to build and develop a hemp-based snowboard brand, and whenever I started these conversations, we didn't realize that there was really no methods and processes or infrastructure or supply chains. And it's like, well, what are you going to do? You're going to roll over and die, or are you going to get out of bed and kind of help this industry get up and get established? And so that's kind of what my premise has been for the last couple of years. And I built the first HEMPCRETE permitted structure in Denver County in 2017. And going through that permitting process, we realized that if we wanted to expand this industry, that there was some things that needed to get kind of involved in getting things compliant and certified, and advocating. We can't put plants in the ground and have this green revolution without creating markets and developing education and getting contractors kind of familiar with this building material, and just creating a demand. And so a year ago, about April of last year, me and Stacy Becker and about a dozen others, leaders in the hemp industry, we started the U.S. Hemp Building Association to do just that. We're advocating, we're educating about the properties of hempcrete, and we're building out that supply chain. We're building the infrastructure, and with that, our members are joining in. We have everyone from architects to contractors to just people that are trying to do things a little better and greener than the way that we have. And the amount of response and momentum that's been coming with this has been just inspiring, to say the least. And lots of momentum. We're working with ASTM now to get some things certified, and things are working better than we could have possibly hoped for.
Sounds super interesting. That's actually a perfect introduction now for today. You said make everything a little bit greener. That's kind of the hook for today. Yeah, we are having this series on the Green Deal. That is not the main background, obviously, today, but you mentioned that there's some momentum. Yeah, the point, you are already, so to say, also leaders when it comes to that point worldwide. So that's also something we will talk about later. And you have cool videos you gave
That's
me.
right.
So we have a chance later soon to watch the video. So let's start a little presentation, and then we have the chance to ask Eric more questions. So we get some background now to listen more to Eric. Just wanted to quickly mention some backgrounds which are going on over there in the US and also here in Europe. It's a big thing. I don't want to go into the details, but people talk about the Green Deal, so it's a big thing at the moment. We don't really know what about is real and what is not real, but in the end, I think there has never been such a big hype around sustainability, and we also obviously have to be careful what is greenwashing and what is not. That's why actually I really like talking about hemp, because for me it's one of the most amazing things when it comes to being a real sustainable and a real circular resource when we want so. Because here in Europe we talk about a lot about circular economy, which means we want to look at the whole life cycle of products and things like that. And when we talk about HEMPCRETE, from what I heard, it's a pretty sustainable resource. So it's interesting to see what's going on. Just as a quick background, here in Europe, it will become real. I think in the US it's just still a proposal, but here already the guidelines will be coming into place. So the economy will really change, and Europe wants to be a climate neutral continent by 2050. And I'm a bit sad, to be honest, that not so many people talk about hemp and hempcrete, and that's why more or less this is also the reason why I want to have this webinar with you, to really spread the word that I believe, and I think many people believe, that hemp is a great solution. Just one fact that was mentioned in the video was the carbon footprint of the building industry. That's why also we have the title today, Building Leaders. You mentioned that you from the Hemp Building Association, you guys advocate and you build leaders. That's what you told me in the beginning. It's like your mission. That was a bit also the idea of today. So when we look at this slide now, we can see that the building industry, when it's not based on hemp, has lots of problems associated with it. A lot of environmental issues, but also health issues for the workers. And it's quite interesting when we later watch the videos that Eric gave me, when we see the workers in the halls walking around. That doesn't look to me unhealthy at all. It doesn't look like there's any chemicals in the air and so on. So also from that perspective, really interesting to start talking about hemp as a solution for many problems. So now again, we have the chance to ask questions. I will start, and then after this, everybody can ask questions via the chat. So yeah, first question, I think this is, and we talked about this before, and it's one of the very important questions we always have to like clear in the beginning when we talk about hemp. So yeah, so you're really experienced in explaining what is the difference between hemp and cannabis.
In cannabis. Well, yeah, the major difference, the only difference, major difference is the content of THC, and which is the psychotropic attributes of the hemp plant. And for years we have been demonizing this plants for its various uses. But what we're realizing is that a lot of this has been a lot of propaganda put together by government leaders in order to separate and divide us, and whether for political gains or for control of its constituents. And then also we have the petroleum and the pharmaceutical and the plastics industry that have also heavily lobbied against cannabis for decades. It's its largest potential competitor. And so now, due to social media and them not being able to control the message as much as they were once able to, hemp and cannabis are coming to the forefront. And I think that we like to use the analogy that we're in the 11th hour of a lot of environmental and ecological kind of concern, and we have this all-star player that's coming into the game that can really kind of hopefully pull us out of a lot of messes. But we can't do it alone. That's why we talk about building leaders. There's so much potential and there's so much opportunity. Now that we have these individuals that are advocating for plants, we need to have industrial people moving forward and becoming contractors and becoming visual leaders, or just speaking out about the potential of this plant. And so that's kind of where we need to go from there.
Yeah, that's really interesting that you mentioned that. All-star player, for me, that's the right name. And that's why I'm really curious to see more from your insight. So the next question to you that we have goes into that direction. Sorry. So what exactly is hempcrete? Maybe although in the video it was said something already.
Yeah.
Maybe you can repeat some major
Yeah.
insights and what makes it a sustainable material in the end.
Well, what does sustainable mean in its basic? You know, something that's renewable, something that's regenerative. You know, when we talk about petroleum-based products, you know, there's a finite amount of material to be used. You know, whether that's we talk about peak oil or peak water. You know, now in the construction, you know, the concrete industry, we talk about peak sand. You know, sand that's rougher beach sand that you know is a little sharper and is a better aggregate than traditional desert sand that's in the you know in the Sahara Desert. You know, that has a lot of silica in it, and it is not as ideal for the concrete industry. And so sustainable is having, you know, endless amounts of something, you know, and being plant-based, the fact that we can grow it, I mean, that truly makes it sustainable. Also, you know, if we're using it for building material, you know, reducing transportation costs and having something that's being grown or sourced regionally makes it more sustainable. And also the fact that whenever you're done with it, you know, how is it reused or you know, what's part of the waste project process, and the fact that you know, hemp is biologically, you know, plant-based. You know, once it decomposes, it goes back into the ground again, and it's, you know, going to become plant food or fish food versus, you know, choking our plants and animals. And so you know, that's kind of the big thing, is that there's limitless supply. It's available locally, and once we're done with it, it can be disposed of properly without being an impact on the environment.
Yeah, well, the list is it seems like never ending in a way. That's what I find so incredibly amazing. Now actually we will show you two videos, and you have more amazing facts about what was going on already in Colorado about hemp. So let me share two videos now with you. I hope the sound and everything will work fine. Again, I will ask you for your feedback then in the chat.
I just received this video a few days ago, and I'm not going to tell you where it's from or what it's about, but I think that this is an important video because, you know, when we talk about CBD production, the amount of isolates, you know, if you have a kilo of isolate or, you know, crude or what have you, the amount of products that you can make from 1 liter is substantial. I mean, 40,000 products, or, you know, it's you can get a lot of, you know, individual consumer-based products in just a kilo of isolate. Now, what you're seeing there in all that biomass is more products that can be produced annually just by every company in the world. I mean, I exaggerate that because I'm not really sure about the numbers and all that. But what I'm saying is that there, you know, as we try to build out this industry, we need to learn how to diversify, because, you know, CBD is the hot topic right now and it's the low-hanging fruit, but we really need to, you know, learn how to utilize this product and, you know, into consumables, into plants, and, you know, chairs and lamps and all the other varieties, because if we're focusing on this one single cannabinoid, we are going, I mean, we're setting ourselves up to fail. You know, we have lots of farmers that are growing. I mean, there's tons of farmers now that are still sitting on product that, you know, they were just so sure that they were going to be able to sell because this is the new hot cash crop. But everybody's going after one single cannabinoid, and we need to learn how to diversify. So, I mean, the fact that we can, you know, produce cars with hemp and plane, I mean, we talk about planes or all the consumer goods, you know, shelving and counters and housing, you know, this is why we need to diversify, folks, because if you're all planning on growing CBD in the near future, you're already being outgrown by years. So, I mean, that's kind of what the message I have to say about this is, you know, if you're looking to grow for hemp, I would strongly consider looking for other avenues of, you know, methods and processes so that you can get your hemp sold. You know, so whether that's finding someone that's interested in plastics manufacturing or construction or what have you. I mean, that's going to be the way to go. You know, this is what's sexy now, and this is what everyone wants to do. But realistically, you know, if you're trying to grow for CBD and you're trying to compete with some of these big dogs, you're going to die tired.
Well, it sounds pretty amazing. What we can see there on the videos. I hope you could see both videos. Okay. Yeah. So
I heard a statement the other day that if Coca-Cola, which is, you know, one of the whales, everybody's excited. As soon as Coca-Cola gets on board, you know, we'll be able to grow so much more. Coca-Cola, the amount of CBD that they would need to grow for their annual use globally would be about 500 acres. And the fact that we have people that are wanting to grow thousands and thousands of acres for CBD production, it's you know, I hate to say it's a lost cause, but, you know, and I also believe that, you know, we're still building markets in CBD. You know, like being in Western Pennsylvania, there's places that are still being, you know, enlightened about the uses of CBD, and you know, that's coast to coast here in America, and, you know, there's lots of untapped markets across the world. But I mean, we can see that there's plenty of product that's being developed for CBD, and, you know, those, you know, you got to diversify, you know. And so I like to use the analogy that CBD is like one little infinitesimal speck in, you know, the mountain that is hemp, or, you know, CBD is one little gold streak, maybe with a little honey pot, that is the mountain of hemp. I mean, people are not seeing the forest or not seeing the mountain for the trees. And I mean, there's so much potential and so many opportunities, and everyone's just focusing on one cannabinoid. It's crazy.
Yeah, you mentioned many points, like focusing only just on one cannabinoid. I'm also always a bit, yeah, I don't want to say annoyed, but I'm also saying, yeah, they're missing on too much potential. Like when you look, for example, on what's going on in California, what they do with medicinal cannabis and the whole spectrum of cannabinoids, it's hundreds of cannabinoids, and there's so many that haven't even been really studied. Even to say just to focus on even 3 or 4 would be already say you're too limited, yeah. So there's, and then when you talk about the terpenes and all these kind of things that can vary so much in this plant, it's actually really amazing. Yeah. So let's maybe go back to some other stuff that I also have, because you mentioned some things like amazing facts that make cannabis or hemp really great resource. One of the things we mentioned before also in the video, that really the construction industry is having a really heavy footprint. And when we listened to Eric, he was mentioning that you can first grow it, and it can be done locally. There's really also no mining problems or other minerals or other eventually problems when it comes to like extracting resources from other places. So you mentioned it is actually a really circular resource, and that's what it makes it really sustainable from that point of view. So yeah, that's some facts here on actually how bad cement is, and what this was a BBC article talking about one CO2 emitter that we don't really have so much in mind, and that's why also we talk about HEMPCRETE today so much, that that is found in the building industry. So that's why it's really important that we talk about this. And you mentioned also that there's a lot of opportunities or we should look for other opportunities. And that's actually what I'm curious about. Like, what potential do you see when it comes to like exporting? Because right here in Europe, for example, I don't see the materials. So when we see these videos, you mentioned that there's actually enough to export for the whole world, more or less. You mentioned. So how can we think about that?
In Puerto Rico this past week, and I've been to Jamaica. I've been working in Haiti. And importing, exporting is going to be a big part of this. There's places like Jamaica that have their ganja industry, and they're not going to want to grow hemp in Jamaica, because of cross pollination, and they have a thriving ganja industry that's been flourishing for the last 50 years, and they're just now going nationally legal with their cannabis industry. And being a small island, we can definitely see that they're not going to want to grow hemp. And so being able to set up infrastructure that we can get supplies and get products to places that want them or are not as ideal for hemp growing, then we need to set up the supply chains. But the other big thing that's kind of holding us back is processing and getting things compliant, and just being able to, right now, when we hear about processing, it's 99% for the CBD extraction industry. They're taking the whole plant material or the whole flower, and they're milling it for CBD extraction. So getting manufacturing for fiber and for cleaner and a variety of herb products, that could all be used for plastics and milling. So trying to get those other ancillary processing facilities up and established is what we're really kind of needing to focus on the next couple of years.
So you're saying also like one of the challenges is that the material is actually available to do other things than just to extract CBD. Is that what I understand also correctly?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, most of the CBD is being brought from the flower. The cannabinoids are the larger percentages are in the flowers or in the buds. There are cannabinoids and other components in the stalks and stems, but people, that tends to kind of lower percentages. So if you can kind of keep your percentages high, you can get a more yield per production than you would just from using the whole plant. There's the food industry. I mean, it's a superfood. So the proteins and the omegas that are available. There's all we're seeing right now are the hemp hearts or but I've had things like pesto recently where they've removed all the greens and things, and they've put in greens from hemp, and it's incredible. And then there's things like hemp pasta and flour, and there's unbelievable amount of opportunities for food products.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you mentioned many interesting facts, and this goes in line a little bit with the next couple of slides. Some facts we already hear in the background a bit. You mentioned plastics.
Yeah, they talk about sustainable cotton. Cotton is not very. I mean, it takes lots of pesticides, takes tons of water. Not as sustainable as cotton. Absolutely not. Wood. Wood production. If you want to have a tree that's ready for harvest, it can take up to 40 years to have a harvestable tree, versus 4 months for a growing cycle for hemp. Leave your trees in the ground. I mean, we can grow plenty of paper. We can grow plenty of houses just using hemp for sure. And then of course plastics. If we can even move the needle just a little bit, I don't go to, Texas and preach about, removing oil from the conversation. I talk about what do we need to do to use oil in its, longest form. Let's get the most use out of these products. And that goes in, the same goes for plastic. Plastic is not going anywhere, folks. And so being able to, expand its lifespan so that we get the most use out of it. And then when we are done with it, we can recycle it and get it back into the chain closing those loops, that's what we need. That's what we really need to focus on. But also being able to take, single-use plastics like straws that everybody loves, and plastic sporks and whatnot. We could use those. We could use starches and hemp and a variety of other ways to do that without being so costly on our environment.
Yeah, you mentioned many points, and that's what I'm also so amazed about. You mentioned it before, the all player here. A couple of more slides that I found totally crazy when I heard about them.
He's my favorite.
Debunk some myths afterwards, because you are the you know more.
And,
you already debunked one of the myths for me in the forefield. There was also for me a little insight. So
yes.
Very interesting. Political leaders were hemp farmers in the past, and another interesting fact also that, for example, in the 1600 something, hemp farmers in the US were obligated to grow hemp. So that's really
yes.
Nowadays you can't really imagine how that is possible. So
you were able to pay your taxes in hemp. Back in the colonial times, you were able to pay your taxes in hemp. You were able to go to the magistrate with your, and it was such a commodity that you were able to exchange and pay your taxes in fiber.
Yeah, that's one of the facts that I found totally crazy, to be honest. And we see here a car, and to build a car basically that is made from the soil, so you can actually make car components. We see here a car from Henry Ford, and one of his
1941.
dreams.
Yep, 1941. Henry Ford built I can't even, I'm not sure what the model was, but the quarter panels were made out of bioplastics, and the vehicle ran on ethanol, and they were ready to go to production, and but because they had backers like the Rockefellers, they had backers like the Firestones, and they had already invested tons and tons of money into the petroleum industry. They ended up squashing it. And so no, this technology has been around half a century.
Yeah, that's actually unbelievable. Some more of those facts. Hemp is a bioaccumulator, which means you can first you have to be careful that you use lots of, when you grow it, you have to also be thinking of growing it organically, of course. But apart from that, you can, if you have poor soil or like contaminated soil, it can really suck out the bad things. And you have to obviously then think how to dispose it. But it can also up to clean up radioactivity, something that I found incredible. And another thing that I found also more than incredible, when we talk about sustainable mobility, for example, one of the main issues today still to be solved are the batteries. So there's the mining processes associated with that, and you can make actually batteries on hemp where there's no mining associated. Like, that's incredible. I mean, that's right. Something that's
so. These things are cell phones. These are not going anywhere. We like to think that, with the Green New Deal, we're going to go back and step back into the Stone Age, or the pre-industry age. And that's absolutely not true. I mean, we have solar, we have wind, we have, we have the potential to, hemp is one of the few electrically conductive materials. The fact that hemp is conductive and you can refine it into graphene, instead of people, lithium, there's going to be battles in the Middle East for lithium. There's only limited number of lithium deposits in the planet, and once we get away from petroleum, I can see us staying entrenched in these places because we're going to be fighting over lithium. It's totally avoidable, and by growing for fiber, we can grow for graphene. We can have enough battery power to power all of our batteries for the rest of our lives, and it's a plentiful resource. But also, once we're done with them, we could recycle them. So you can't do that with a lot of lithium. you can't do that with a lot of batteries. So it's a win-win, totally sustainable.
Yeah, that's like you said, it's all player, and you already think, what can't it do? Yeah, I don't think of so many. I can't think of so many
So
things.
it makes like, okay, you know, I don't want to get into the medicinal attributes because, you know, then the FDA and everybody else wants to get involved. But you know, there's you know, people talk about it's proper. You know, it's working with MS. It works with Alzheimer's. It's working with you know, it's shrinking tumors. Also, you know, it's electrically conductive, so it can be battery. It also produces better rocket fuel than traditional rocket fuel, and you know, you can make car parts out of it. So you know, we're starting to see, you know, organizations like like Porsche and Lotus and BMW, Mercedes are all using, you know, plant-based materials in their new cars, supercars, not even, you know, or you know, traditional vehicles or consumer vehicles, but they're putting them in their supercars, which is incredible.
Yeah, for them it's like really innovation, and that's what I find so amazing. Also, that we're not talking like back in the days. Maybe hemp was always like put into like the, let's call it, alternative corner. Now, the further we dip into the research, it becomes really, yeah, astonishing what can or can't be done. But then now let me go to the next slide. Something that needed to be debunked, and that's something that you also wanted to mention, that there's a lot of myth around this plant. So yeah, the next slide, actually, you might want to say something about that too.
This is great. I'm glad that you put this, you know, as we were looking over the slides the last couple of days, I saw this and I was like, well, what do we do? Do we, you know, do we leave it? Do we add it? But, you know, this is a situation where, you know, fake news, everyone likes to talk about fake news. This plane doesn't exist. You know, we're not quite there yet in the 21st century to, you know, produce and, you know, make a plane yet. So, you know, we see a lot of ads on social media where people are promoting this plane, and realistically, you know, we're just not there yet. So, you know, we're still kind of in our infancy. You know, there are people that are building plastics on the small scale in their test labs. You know, we're starting to see some composite pellets that are being made, you know, that are like one part, you know, PVC or PLA with a small percentage of hemp. You know, you're starting to see that in your 3D printer filaments, or, you know, some other extruded processes. But realistically, like, you know, you see this plane, it doesn't run on hemp ethanol. It doesn't, the plane doesn't even exist yet. So, you know, we are still in our infancy. We're still trying to get, you know, some of this production up and established, and you know, a lot more R&D needs to be put into place before we get to that point. If you want to start making planes with new materials, you know, the FAA is like one of the hardest organizations to get new materials and processes incorporated into their methods. So I look forward to it, but we got years to go yet before we get to that point.
So it's pretty interesting though to think of these possibilities. Well, I have some more questions for you. Probably mentioned many of them, but when we round up a bit, for you personally, what is the most amazing fact for you about hemp?
The most amazing, I mean, just the fact that it, you know, the more we, you know, I just talked about the battery, we talked about the, you know, the carbon sequestering, we talked about the cancer tumor reducing, you know, it's a superfood. And I'm not using that term loosely. I mean, you know, the sailors and, you know, seamen used to sustain themselves at sea for weeks if they couldn't, you know, catch, you know, to keep from getting scurvy. So you have all these opportunities, but I'd say that the fact is, like, the more we push this plant to figure out its capabilities, it keeps responding with better than expected responses. You know, like, not only is it jet fuel, it's better jet fuel. Not only is it, you know, it's so, you know, there's so many variables that the more we push it, the better it responds.
So endless possibilities.
Endless possibilities. Use your imaginations. You really have to kind of think outside the box and get creative to kind of see what, you know, what's next for this, you know.
So talking about what's next, like for you, since you said you were like recently found last year, April, when I understood that correctly, then what are the biggest challenges that you are facing now from the point of view of the Hemp Building Association? So what is the main challenge you want to solve at the moment?
Yeah, so when we got the association started, we knew that setting up supply chains and setting up infrastructure was going to be a big task. We have tons of eager farmers that are looking forward to growing it, but now we need to get the processors involved. We need to kind of shift gears and go from CBD processing into the industrial processing for fiber. That's a different animal and different method and process. And then also, getting things certified and compliant. So, working with ASTM, working with UL, which is like the universal licensing. These are third-party organizations that kind of look at building materials, like, steel I-beams or gypsum board drywall, or even concrete. Like what are the abilities to, what are the bookends that we were allowed to use these materials? Like, what's the load bearing features, or is it for shear strength? Or so just get hemp and hempcrete, or those new products standardized to be used in the traditional building industry is kind of where we need to go and what we're trying to do. Just advocating to building departments, and advocating to architects and larger construction industries to say, like, hey, you are creating a lot of waste, you are creating a lot of CO2. We don't want you to beat us, we want you to join us. We want you to be a part of the industry so that you can kind of help us build out and be more robust. So that's kind of what we're trying to do. Is we're just trying to bang the drum a little louder. We're trying to get the industry involved, and we've been participating in a lot of hemp events the last couple of years, myself included. But we're trying to reach our arms out now. We're going to more home shows. We're going to more sustainable green build shows, and more agricultural places, and just trying to advocate for what hemp all can be.
Okay, great. Now I think would be a super good moment to switch to the possibility to give everybody a chance to speak. Someone wanted the microphone. I will quickly give access, and then we have another question also already in the chat. So just 1 minute. So now try the microphone, please. Now you should have a possibility, Lilian. Lian? Hello? Can you test the microphone? Test 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, of course. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, yes. No, yeah. Now we can hear you.
I'm sorry, I didn't know which are you talking to, Mr. McGee or me, right? That's just wanted to happen.
Yes.
Okay, so basically on everything that's been said so far, I mean, about this guy with the plane, he's actually Canadian, as far as I know, because Canadians really are. I mean, as much as the United States wish to be pioneers, Canadians actually are the #1 spot right now in every single place, starting with plastics, of course. And this guy, yes, it's false news. You might have read actually an article that he said that he wanted his creation to be used, for the general public and everything. And you don't even have to go into conspiracy theories or everything just to find out that everything, like we have internet, for instance, is with military funding. So you telling me that this person is actually going to turn out like a couple of $1 billion for his plane, for prototype or whatever? And the second part being that this news is absolutely nowhere to be found at all, just like one single place on that site. On Mrs. Owen or Miss Owen, I'm sorry, question, I'd like to jump straight forward to it. Once the hemp is grown, what I've been told by a couple of farmers here in Romania, because I'm actually located in Bulgaria, so to speak, couple of farmers from Romania and a couple of farmers from France that actually been growing actively hemp. They told me that basically the nitrogen that is stored in the plant is mostly stored in the leaves. So if you want to regenerate the soil after you harvest the entire crop, you should leave the leaves and the roots inside so that they can regenerate the soil and basically do like kind of like a layover with nitrogen for the next crop. However, that being said, it is a weed, like literally a weed. It's been growing throughout our parts, particularly in Bulgaria and southwestern Bulgaria, for like generations and generations before even communists came into Bulgaria. With that being said, of course, I also would like to mention that it doesn't, the thing about the hemp does not require any kind of pesticides is false. It does require pesticides. However, not as strong as cotton and other, fabrics or cultures, so to speak, but it does require them. And also something that you might want to look at if you guys are not aware of is jute, but it's actually, the name is kenaf. This is a cousin of cannabis, basically, because hemp is cannabis, like Latin name. Kenaf has almost the same properties as hemp, and that being said, also hempcrete can be done. Like in Italy in 2007, there was a joint project that was for sustainable housing, and Bulgaria was also a part of it. So all the absorbent parts, all the stuff that you can, pretty much everything you can do with hemp can be done with kenaf as well. And I also would like to say that kenaf is the best ever source in the world for paper, like literally the best source for money paper. I mean, that can give you like a lot of ideas jumping straight off. And just because I don't want to take a lot of time from everybody else, I also would like to mention that I originally wanted to do the hempcrete thing, but also the other part is hemp plastic. Also, kind of like this person from Canada with the false news about the plane, I would definitely like to mention that although through my research, all the organizations or whatsoever currently undergoing or marketing the fact there are sustainable alternatives to plastic for general use, there are none. Because if you want to try to actually order, whether it is from China, whether it's from India, whether it's from US, whether it's from Canada or Europe, if you want to order a specific type of product, then you would face an unimaginable delay in production. And also there is not a commercialized place. Like basically there's no hub for it. As Mr. McGee mentioned, everything is still starch and PLA based. So guys, this is into the further future, because I wanted to introduce like plastic bags and straws in the beginning, and now my team and I are reverse engineering a product, like ancient recipe of a product that we found in Bulgaria, and also something that is combined with PLA, and we want to introduce the single-use plastics that are actually not only single-use.
Did you have a question, Ilian?
Yes, go ahead.
Did you have a question?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Did you have a question?
Yes, my most important question regarding the hempcrete construction is, do you guys use hydraulic or hydrated lime, and why?
Both. Both. The answer is both. So if you look at the Steve Allen's book,
I have it.
You could,
I have it.
The hydrated lime and the hydraulic lime. The hydraulic, the type S, the 5.0 or the 3.5 firms up a little bit harder and firmer. And so, if you can't, it's all, the hydrated lime is a lot more cost effective. Here in the States, you can find a bag for about $11 a bag versus the hydraulic is about, it could be $40 a bag. So people have been cutting the hydrated with a little bit of the hydraulic to give it a little more tooth.
Okay, added to that, when you guys place like boards, on the outside of the construction to, fill it with hemp, do you actually put something in between the hemp and the board? Because in my idea is
yes. So
would you elaborate,
so
please?
Things are generally stick frames. So things are usually stick framed, and so as opposed to just having large gaping swaths of hempcretes, people are putting 2x4s or some kind of framework in that just to kind of shore things up and to kind of give it something to hold on to. Yes. And then also you can bury all your conduit and all your junction boxes and everything else into that as well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Have you actually found some
Ilya,
sort of?
we have a couple other people that want to ask some questions, brother.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
If you want
I'll
to
mute my
reach
mic.
out
I'll
to me
mute my mic.
afterwards.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, sir. We have a question from Janet Owens is asking about soil remediation. Yes, there are places like in Chernobyl and also Superfund sites where they are using hemp to use for soil remediation. And they're seeing, you know, I have not seen any of the papers yet from Chernobyl. I don't know if anybody has. If anyone's been able to locate those, I'd be greatly interested in seeing them. But, you know, what we're seeing is that hemp can pick up heavy metals as well as other toxins. And I've also just seen recently, if I can find the article, I'll post it here. But, you know, even though it's remediating the soil and cleaning up from heavy metals, it's still producing clean buds. So the flower's still kind of impervious or still clean from all the other toxins, which I think is pretty incredible.
Okay, yeah, thank you for the interesting input. Let's go a bit further in there's just a couple of more things I wanted to ask. I guess this question would be also interesting for me from a perspective of a sustainable building material. Is hemp or hempcrete long lasting, and what about the maintenance of it?
It is long lasting. I've seen, and you know, the hemp and hempcrete, it's an old traditional building method. You know, it's a old method that's being used again. And you know, whether it's in the UK or in Spain or France, they've been using hempcrete for a long time. And you know, just like anything else, if you have wear, if you have maintenance, you know, it's fairly easy to kind of get in there and do some patchwork. And I think that's a lot of the reasons why it's been used for so long is, you know, before modern methods of construction, you know, you had to use the materials that were available around you, you know, so whether that was cobblestone or, you know, mortar or, timber framing, you know, the hemp and hempcretes have been a part of that conversation. And now that, you know, if you do have a small patch that you have to do, you just mix your hempcrete and you can add it and plaster it afterwards. And you know, you can patch it just like you would traditional, you know, house maintenance.
Okay, one more question. That's one thing actually I was interested, because it always sounds like you have to like do it on your own. Is there actually a way that you can just buy like bags of made hempcrete, or like how you would mix like a cement, like you go to a normal like hardware store and you just get like a bag?
Yeah, so, you know, here in the US, herd has been distributed. You know, there's a company out of Virginia called Old Dominion Hemp, and they have been importing herd for, you know, for decades now. You know, there's a lot of people that have been using it for animal bedding, but they just haven't been aware of, you know, how to use it in construction methods and processes. But you know, my goal, you know, there's also Cynthia Goodwin from Texas, or from Canada. I believe she's on her talk today. Thanks for joining us. You know, there's people like her, and they have their Etsy website where, you know, you can go and you can get a little hempcrete mixing package to kind of, you know, experiment and see how that works for yourself. And I hope to see as this gets built out. And also there's companies like Hempire US and Hempire EU, where, you know, they have their proprietary mortar mix that can be used for hempcrete. And then also there's Mr. Wolf Jordan, who is based out of Belgium. He too has a proprietary hempcrete mix that he's been using for years. And that's a valid and viable method as well.
Okay, very interesting, very interesting. Well, I think the biggest challenge we mentioned already, so I think we can. I had them prepared as like backup questions a little bit.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, two like best cases or things that I wanted to mention too that I found like already pretty amazing. Like we're talking a lot about the United States, obviously, because as I mentioned in the beginning, for me that's where the show is going down now, and I'm hoping to also hear more from the European side. We just heard some interesting intervention about what is going on in Europe and different things. So yeah, I'm also curious. So whoever is in the seminar today can also send us more information on more interesting building materials. I mean, this is for all of us to grow and to learn what works, and yeah, to just also open our minds to new things. So that's what I found really interesting, that the Environmental Protection Agency, I think is the correct name of in the US, is now funding EPA, yeah, is like funding research on hemp as a sustainable resource alternative, which I found pretty cool. And then also some industry reports, like forecasts on revenues and things like that until 2026. The numbers speak for themselves. That there's pretty much going on. And when we talk about sustainability, we also have to think about like job creation and things like that. And when I read things about Colorado, there's many things that I like. For example, the tax income that is created from the sales goes back to financing like housing projects, if I'm not mistaken. That's something at least
Right.
that you read here. Just making sure you don't debunk another fake news that I saw. But this appears to be real. Yes. To mention something else, because now we're talking a bit about the economic side, because obviously we have to also think of like hemp as an opportunity to grow or to like make certain areas that are now rural and maybe suffer lots of social problems, and also make them give them a chance to grow economically in a environmentally and socially better way. So
Absolutely.
that's why I wanted
Absolutely.
to mention the economic side. So maybe two or three or a couple of more sentences on
Yeah.
the upcoming
No,
exposition.
I love this. This is a great segue. You know, I like to use the analogy of the Industrial Revolution. You know, during the Industrial Revolution, people had to leave their farms or leave their countryside to go to where the industry, to where the jobs were. You know, whether that was the automotive industry in Detroit or the steel industry in Pennsylvania and Pittsburgh and Johnstown. Then you have the gold revolution, the gold rush, where people had to go to the Rockies to find gold, or California. And, this is a green revolution that you could have right where you are. I mean, this is a plant that grows, from coast to coast, and from, down, subtropical to the higher mountains here in Colorado. And it really thrives just about everywhere. So you can participate in this industry right where you are. And, not everybody has to be a farmer. We're going to need agronomists. We're going to need, accountants and marketing and attorneys and plumbers and electricians. And, there's so much potential in this industry that, if the economics, I tell people, don't try to be me. Try to find out who you are and how you want to participate in this industry, and how you can be a steward of the plant. Absolutely.
Yeah, very interesting facts you hear about the growth potential for countries and things like that. So, what is going on exactly on this exposition? Maybe some as a call to action for everybody, that they can, whoever is over that side on the Atlantic.
So this is thank you. We're about 50 days away from the Northern Colorado Hemp Expo. This is our 7th year. We know that the HIA has been around for a long time. There's been other, hemp industry advocates, in Canada and Europe. Europe have been growing and producing hemp for a long time. But since the legalization of cannabis, the whispers of hemp have started in Colorado. And the NOCO was one of the first hemp industry in the U.S. And now I like to think it's probably one of the large hemp in the Western sphere. Last year we were in 80,000 square feet. This year we're going to be in about 200,000 square feet, and we have tons of vendors, tons of lecturers. You know, as the industry has been building out the last couple of years, it's becoming more and more, you know, heavily focused on the on CBD processing and manufacturing. But you know, this year we're pushed back. I'm very happy to say that the US HBA is partnering with NOCO. We're taking over about 25% of the floor. We're going to have our, you know, we're focusing on the industrial applications, and you know, we're going to be talking about processing. We're going to have our own stage, our own on the scene hemp decorticating, as well as ongoing HEMPCRETE workshop for the weekend. And so this is going to be an excellent, you know, if you're someone that's interested in becoming a part of the industry, or you are already a seasoned veteran and you're just trying to, you know, build out your infrastructure or your network, this is a great event not to be missed.
Okay, so I see also we are pretty much forwarded in time. So let's come to the conclusion of today.
Yeah.
I think 2 recommendations. Well, one is to maybe just simply go to YouTube and find some other amazing videos. Here's one with the title you can see here. I'm sure if you write Eric, he can recommend you tons of materials more. I learned a lot today. That's why I'm happy that we had the expert here today. Also, I would like to ask you, like, how can everybody help you guys to continue what you're doing? What is, I see here your call to action is join now. So actually, you
That's right.
would like to everybody to join your association, so to say.
Yes, please. So, you know, it's funny because I was watching something about associations, organizations, and why you'd want to join another organization. You know, where does this money go? What do I get out of this? Well, you know, if you're interested in growing a green, sustainable economy, I would highly recommend you consider joining the US HBA. We have, you know, it's not about you supporting us, it's about us supporting you. And so, you know, building out the supply chains, building out the infrastructure, you know, getting contractors educated, getting architects educated, and, you know, just helping us bring this movement to fruition. And, you know, it's, you know, I would like to ask you all to become part of the movement. So that's kind of where that is. And that's our agenda, short and sweet.
Cool. Yeah, I can just underline that. So let's conclude today. Of course, we can have some more questions if there are. Just from our side, we have calls to action, or just like, let's say, invitation to look around. Also have a look on our website. We are also the School for Sustainability and Healthy Living based here in Europe. If you're interested also in things like permaculture or ethical marketing or things around carbon footprint, things like that, have a look. Obviously, I would really like to support you guys to do what Eric is doing. I knew Eric from a Facebook group, so whoever is on Facebook, I just really kindly ask you, join the group, International HEMPCRETE Builders Forum, and check also his website, Wonder Workshop. For sure, have a look at what's going on at the exposition, because for me, just the pure size of the trade fair shows the importance of the industry. That was one of my intentions, to show also people here in Europe that there's so much going on and there's so much potential. And when we talk about a green economy, a Green Deal, for me, we can't not talk without hemp. I mean, for me, there's no way around. There's no way around, and we have to put it on the table if it's really about climate change and how we can fight what we have to fight. And if we still don't talk about hemp and be like completely open to it, then I really don't know what we're talking about. That's a bit my point of view. So have a look on what's going on to be inspired. Like he also said, they are here also from the Hemp Building Association to support you. So that's another invite. Go to the website from the Hemp Building Association. Don't have it on here, but maybe you remember and you will see the recording anyways.
USHBA.org.
We have it here, ushba.org for everybody. And yeah, you can also subscribe to our newsletter to see what are the upcoming webinars. And for whoever is interested in like getting a little small certificate for today's little lecture, feel free to write me an email, because that was the little benefit of inscribing and registering for today. I hope you learned a lot. I learned a lot from Eric. So thank you so much for your time and your expertise. And yeah, I would invite everybody, if there's some more questions, feel free. And but from my side, I just want to thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure. And yeah, if you guys want to reach out to me, you can reach out to me through the Wonder Workshop. There's a email capture there. I can get a hold of you, ask any of your questions. And again, I would like for you guys to join the USHBA and help us move this industry forward. This isn't a left or right industry. This is a humanity industry. This is for everybody. This is not political. This is apolitical. And this is for the greater good for everybody.
So thank you very much, everybody, for joining and for all of your attention. It was a long ride tonight, but I think, or in the morning for you here, it's getting dark already. So thank you very much for everybody's attention, and mostly for your time, Eric. And yeah, maybe see you again. Come over to Europe to do what you're doing over there, over here. That would be a good call to action.
I'd love to. Thanks, Doc Phil. I appreciate you. Thank you.
See you soon.
Cheers.